and welcome back to the Beyond the Board Studios here in Orland Park. We are doing the last episode, which is actually going to be a Beyond the episode today here for the year of 2021. And today, my guest here is Steve Hurley from California. Steve, first and foremost, thanks for coming to the studio.
Yeah, man, I'm stoked to be here. Thanks so much for having me, man.
So, as you know, us as skateboarders, we all have an origin story.
Yeah.
How did you get into this wonderful world of skateboarding? This something as so simple as a piece of plywood for your thing, wheels, two trucks. How did you get into it?
Oh man, it really started like most suburban stories, right? Like, I saw like a neighbor kind of cruising around on that, and I kind of bugged my parents, like, I want to do that. And I kind of grew up watching like the X Games on television and so on and so forth. So it's a pretty similar origin story to so many people, right? I think originally I'd kind of been on and off with it. I always had a skateboard near me, but I kind of messed around with it. But it wasn't until really high school that I remember I had a friend at lunch always bring his skateboard with him. And he would always ask me questions like, oh, hey, like, you know, I have this, you know, this particular deck. And I'd always ask him questions about it. And then I remember the date. It was cold and winter around this time of year, February 28th, 2006.
That's pretty damn dope that you know the exact day, month, year.
Yeah, because I remember how pivotal it was for me, because up until that point, I was doing traditional sports. I was on the wrestling team in high school. I tried out all summer to be a part of the high school baseball team, only to get cut. And I was so frustrated at the time, and I was like looking for an outlet. And I remember I was sitting at home like after school playing video games, and lo and behold, my doorbell rings. Come downstairs, and it's that same neighbor at lunch that I was hanging out with, and he asked me, "Hey, do you want to skate?" And it's cold, like it's not like warm out, but I wished nothing more than just to get out of my house and get my mind off of it. And it was that day that he showed me skate videos. He ended up cracking the target board that I had and like gave me like a 1993 girl deck.
All right, so I'm gonna
Sure.
So that first, what was your first video you ever watched?
First video I ever saw was actually Dying to Live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that was the first one.
That's not a bad way to start.
Not at all. Yeah. And I think the first video I ever actually bought from like a surf shop actually out in California was Yeah Right. It was Girl Yeah Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you said the first target board. A real quick question. Wasn't it an X Games board?
It was, yeah.
Dude!
Yeah,
Okay.
it was. Yeah.
Okay. And the reason why I asked, because before my mom was like, all right, I want to see how serious and good. That was my first. Yeah. I remember it was black, orange logo, X Games, and it was shit.
Yeah, it was pretty
That's funny that you're first. Yeah. All right. So, with you just getting that, like that essentially got you down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Like, what else were some of your influences that essentially helped you pick up more steam to get into skateboarding even more?
You know, I think a lot of it is just you kind of start getting indoctrinated. You start with kind of where you're at, right? Like, I think for me, obviously being in high school, you're surrounded by other skateboarders too, right? So you start meeting people within the school, like, oh, here's this skateboarder, here's that skateboarder, they're much better. You start seeing people at the skate park, and you start skating with people enough that you kind of look at people like, well, I want to be better than them, or I want to get as good as them. And so obviously you meet people, and those were my immediate influences. And then you start hanging out at the skate shop. They start, you know, sending you videos or showing you videos. And, you know, I would remember the days where I just sit after school with Transworld mags, Thrasher mags. I'd be like downloading skate videos from LimeWire, if those kids remember.
Don't catch a virus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man.
Man, it's kind of funny you said, I know Thrasher's still going on today, but to me, I actually preferred Transworld mags over Thrasher.
Yeah.
Just we were talking about earlier, especially now that the holidays are about to wrap up, but when they used to come up with the buyer's guides, because like, you circle, I want that. I want all that shit. Yeah. So, what was, after the fiasco of the target board and after the girl board, like, what was your first ever pro complete board?
Yeah, I do remember it. And I remember my friend who also got me into skateboarding would like send me home with CCS catalogs.
Hell yes.
Yeah. And like I remember like circling everything out. And of course, like you're kind of like overwhelmed with how many brands there are, right? Yeah. So you kind of go with what you're familiar with. And so I'm gonna kind of, you know, of course I had the Tony Hawk board, the Skull Complete. I had orange Thunder trucks, like clay black Spitfire wheels. I'm thinking I'm like with blue grip tape, blue mob grip tape. Trust me, we've all had our phase.
Yeah.
But I just went crazy with it. But it was the board that I picked out. I fell in love with it, and it was like a 7.5. I was a small kid growing up, so I got a lot of weird looks from a bunch of kids. But I skated the crap out of that board, man. Like, yeah.
You know what's funny is a lot of my friends from when we started skating 99, 2000. I think it's about 50% of us had Birdhouse as our first big pros. Like my buddy. I don't know if you remember. You may remember this. Andrew Reynolds, not the Reaper 2 with the white background.
Yeah.
That was his first birdhouse.
Wow.
Or no, that was his second birdhouse. His first birdhouse was the Steve Bear with the smoking the pipe.
Oh yeah.
So, like when obviously you had the girl board, and then like how did you what went through your mind when you finally got your first like actual complete? Because the reason why I asked this is because again with Christmas just passing, like we all remember when we get our Christmas complete. So like what was it like just getting your first ever complete?
I think it is that feeling where like I think you feel like it's your board. Like you always remember it down to the node of like what that board was and what it meant to you, because it wasn't like a hand-me-down, it wasn't like somebody else's. It was like, no, I picked this board because it's my board. I got to build it from the ground up. And I think when you have that, you create kind of a connection. Sounds kind of cheesy, but it's true.
No.
Like you have that connection to that board to say like, I remember that because that was what started it all for me. And again, like you have like such a relationship with that particular deck that you've progressed probably more than you could ever realize at the time.
So it's not cheesy at all, because I actually did an episode where I actually built my first ever complete. Yeah. Again, I was able to find all the components.
Yeah.
And I know that feeling of, I especially think if you were to ever try to build your first complete now, like it would just, you would go down a time warp and it would just bring back so many memories of like when you were younger. And so no, that's definitely, that's not cheesy at all. Yeah. That is the innocence. That is the sweet thing of skateboarding, is that first ever complete and everything that triggers and everything, how you just connect to it.
Right.
Now, as you were picking up speed and progressing and learning more tricks, like who were some of your biggest influences?
Oh man, there's so many, dude. Like it would change like week to week, honestly, because I think you start going down like that rabbit hole to realize quickly you're becoming a skate rat, where like all you can think about when you're in school is just like gotta skate. Like, so I think really my first one, for me personally, my first biggest influence I remember, obviously Costin was a big one.
Yeah.
Obviously, because you remember people with playing the video games, right? Like Tony Hawk Pro Skater video games. But I also want to say, like, of course, like Rodney Mullen, right? Like that was a big one too. Like I know it's kind of a big.
Dude, I mean, but there's a reason why the man invented so many street tricks.
Right.
He invented so many tricks that you see today that people are doing like nothing, but it's like there's an origin story behind that. Because of that man right there.
Right, agreed. Yeah, and it's cool because I liked the technical aspect of it, and actually the reason why is that Rodney became, the friend that had got me into skating was big into Rodney, and so like obviously skating with that person, they kind of influence you a little bit, and so my first couple of tricks were freestyle tricks. They were like the primo tricks and stuff, and ironically I had a little bit of a gymnastic background, and so like I started trying to do like handstand flips like Rodney did. Like on my board.
And how successful were you with those?
I got it a couple times.
Nice.
Yeah. So I got it a couple times. It wasn't every time. I definitely had a lot of falls there. But I think that was originally because you don't know how to do the basics, right? Like the ollie, the kickflip, the heel flip. Eventually you start getting to that point. But that's where I started off, just to kind of get a foundation to start getting yourself enveloped into skateboarding. And so again, I think obviously knowing, you start going down the rabbit hole of history, knowing that Tony has a relationship with Rodney, and you start watching Round 3 and stuff like that. And again, you just start from skate video to skate video to skate video, and day after day after day, you start getting enveloped in that skate community, that skate world.
Now, speaking of Round 3, what in your opinion, out of all that trilogy, what was the best one?
You know what? I liked them all, but I think I related to round 3 the most, just because I think I think it's what influenced me, and I got to see like all the tricks that Rodney did. I got to see like all of that with, obviously, I think Scheckler was like a big part of that too as well. Like, seeing like a smaller kid skate big gaps. And I'm like, okay, so this kid's, because I was a small kid growing up too, and he was a kid that I recognized on the X Games. So like, it sounds kind of a little bit cheesy, and I'm probably going to get a bunch of flack for it, but like, I got to see other kids who looked like me like do stuff that like are next to those legendary pros. So I got to see like, okay, there's a relatability.
There's a connection there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, hey, he's my size and he's doing all this. Yeah. Holy crap! It's just it almost gets like, well, if he can do it, I can work my way to that level.
Exactly. And then I think even beyond that too, past that as well, like you start getting into other skate videos. Like Flip Really Sorry was like a big favorite of mine, and I think just you start going down the rabbit hole, and I think, beyond Rodney, beyond my original influences, I looked at guys like Mark Appleyard, like the skis of it, like, and then PJ Ladd was like quickly becoming like my favorite skateboarder. So I started really getting into like the technical side of things. Yeah.
Now, going back in the old skate videos, and since you said your very first board was a Birdhouse, did you ever see or have you seen Birdhouse is the End?
I've seen parts of it.
You have to. I'm gonna tell you this right now. You have to watch that from start to finish. That was my first ever skate video watching, and to me, like I said, there's a lot of nostalgia. Plus, like I said, you look over here and you see the Falcon 1, 2, and 3. That's during that era. I would suggest, definitely recommend watching that start to finish.
Yeah.
I know you said you watched Flips Really Sorry.
Right.
Did you watch Sorry?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Cool. Now,
Johnny Rotten. Yep.
Now, going to, you were talking about PJ Ladd.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a particular pair of shoes to my right that you picked.
Yeah.
Now, is that because of the PJ Ladd connection?
Yeah. It's if anyone has ever seen the local video for PJ Ladd's Wonderful Horrible Life. Yes, which is like cult classic. There's that scene where PJ's part comes up and he just sticks his foot in front of the camera of an Excel, and that thing is absolutely wrecked. And I was like, oh my God, like if he can skate through those that hard, and if it's good enough for PJ, good enough for anyone else.
So I know your first. So was the Excel your first exposure with PJ, or was PJ your first exposure to the Excel?
Mainly yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I just, whenever you get some free time, look at some old Tom Penny footage.
Oh yeah. With
him rocking the all browns.
Yeah.
So back then, that's what a lot of us were like. We're like, holy shit! He made those all browns with the gum. Like. So that was the Excel was actually my first ever pair of shoes,
right?
And partially because I saw an old trans where I'm like, those are kind of dope. I'm like, oh shit, that's Tom Penny.
Yeah.
And then so your pair to your left, so the links,
right?
What connects you, or what draws your eye, or like what makes you go, those are a badass shoe?
Yeah, and it's ironic because I come back to that LimeWire portion of where you're just consuming so much skate video content, and then and obviously I think the biggest thing that I remember is like watching the DC video, right? And so since I kind of was sort of like really relating to a lot of the technical aspect of a lot of those skaters, like I kind of also remember seeing that shoe make an appearance in that video quite a bit. And so, of course, because you'd kind of see Anthony Van Engelen rocking that a little bit, and stuff like that. And then, of course, you also had kind of branching off to other things like with Alien Workshop, as well with Brian Wenning. That was like a big influence on that one too.
Well, that's the thing is for a while you had almost like a direct relation between DC and Workshop. Yeah. Because you had Wenning. Yeah. And then Wenning later on went to Habitat. Yep. So, but that was still under the DNA. Yeah. That wasn't DNA. It was. I'll just call it. It was under the bunker.
Yeah, it was the Sovereign Sect. Yeah.
It was the Sovereign Sect, so it was a sister branch. So you had Wenning move over there, and then you had, at the time, you had Kalis, you had Danny Way, you had ABE, and you had Deerdick. Yeah. So you had, which out of all 4 or 5 of those skaters, Wenning was Super Tech. Yeah. Deerdick was good. Right, yeah. But out of all those 5, I hate to say, I'm going to have to put Rob down at 5th. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Actually, I'm just going to say 4 because Danny Way's in a whole league of his own.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about those 4, you got to say the top The top two are, my opinion, Wenning and Kalis.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Kalis, good God. Especially the Love Park days.
Yeah. And that whole section of him just crushing it there, I wish I could have skated there, but like just, it showed like the rawness of street power.
Yeah.
And just like, dude, you can't ignore that tray flip. Sorry.
No.
That tray flip.
Not only that, but not just a tray flip, but the fact that they're improvising and taking those cement blocks and stacking shit underneath, and he's doing that over trash cans and oh, dude.
Yeah. And like I think as you start like looking at these guys too, like it's like you kind of like start getting to know maybe their origin story, and like you look at guys like Kalis and like he's such a skate rat, and like you kind of come from like the fact that like dude, this dude is just so good because he skates literally all day, every day.
Well, Kalis is just a couple hours away, or he lives in Grand
Rapids.
Grand Rapids, yeah. Actually, one of my friends, Lewis Kindle, who's skated with him a couple times, and I got to get a hold of him because he's like, he wants to arrange where I'll pick him up, or we just go hang out all day and go hang out with Kalis. But he's just a couple hours away in Grand Rapids. Yeah, my boy will go skate with him at the skate park. So going to like more of the OG brands, like obviously, because of those two, the boards behind me.
Yes.
Why did you, definitely a big story. We'll get into that one.
Yeah.
But the Falcon 2, why? What's that personal connection between you and that graphic?
Because it was literally the same exact graphic that I had when I picked it out of that CCS catalog. And I think even more, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, is like I kind of was part of that sort of generation of kids that like started off like playing the Tony Hawk Pro Skater video games. And that took an entire generation of, let's say, like young video gamers and exposed them to skateboarding and allowed them to sort of think like, well, if all my favorite skaters are doing this, maybe I can do it. And I, because I was like a nerdy kid growing up. I was a tiny pipsqueak of a kid, didn't think I was that athletic. So when I found skateboarding, and it was kind of that sort of one-off away from kind of traditional sports, like getting cut from a team, like having to be in front of a coach telling you you're not good enough. Like skateboarding was something that allowed me to be like, you can be whoever you want to be, and you don't have any rules. You get to progress at your own rate. And so when I got to see guys from video games that were actually out in the wild, and I got to be a part of that, I could be enveloped in that. I was like, I'm going to start with who I know, Tony Hawk, the biggest guy of them all. And I think that's what got the ball rolling. So I mean I think that's where that special connection comes into, where you started off a video gamer to like an amateur skateboarder. So I think that holds a lot of meaning to me, because even now Tony's still doing so much for skateboarding.
And it's what I've started to realize and notice as either I talk to more people or when I bring people in the studio and we talk about that game. It seems like for even because you started skating what year? Was it 2000?
Yeah, about 2006.
Okay, so that would have been the time of what?
Like Tony Hawk's Underground. I think.
So Tony Hawk Underground.
Yeah.
So I started in '99, so it was the original THPS one.
Yeah.
But what I'm noticing is that entire Project 8 was trash. I'm just gonna say that.
Fair
but
enough,
from 1 to the first Thug,
right?
That was, I guess you could say, the ignition source for us to go down the rabbit hole.
Yep.
Now, if you look over to your left, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So there's 6. So 6 of those boards were on the original Tony Hawk. The red, the blue, the green, Muska.
Right.
And then the Packers color shorties.
Yep.
The red and blue and the blue and red.
Right.
And in one of my very second episodes, it's the second episode that I did, and then when I built my complete later on.
Right.
Muska, like how Birdhouse and Tony Hawk was your first big thing, it was shorties and Muska for me.
Right.
And that's why till this day, like I love a lot of brands. You could tell. You saw my shoe collection. I lot, but the brands and the skaters that mean the most to me will always that have that connection. Like how Tony and Birdhouse said that connection. It will always be Chad. Will always be shorties. And it's just cool to know that something as simple as a video game got you going down a rabbit hole. Got a lot of us going down the rabbit hole. But then because of that, skateboarding is just not about NBDs and piece of plywood 4-urethane wheels. It's more than that. It's you get to meet people from all different walks of life.
Absolutely.
And you forge some of the strongest bonds. You meet some of the coolest people, but on top of that, and I'm sure it's like this with you. It's a lot of people, especially with me. Like skateboarding, it makes you look at life different.
Right. Agreed.
And it can teach you a lot of life lessons. Mm-hmm. You know, people say that about team sports. Oh, team sports teaches you. I get it. It does, but I think because of the nature of the beast of what skateboarding is, I think it teaches you more important life lessons and skills and outlooks on life that you can take and apply to just not a skateboard, but everyday life.
Right. Agreed.
Now, as you kept going down, how was your trick progression as you were getting more and more into skateboarding?
Yeah, and so like I think it's kind of interesting too because like being a smaller kid, right? Like I think like I had a couple of spills like trying like bigger stuff, like trying to hit a handrail, trying to do that. So I kind of my parents were a bit concerned because I'm like getting beat up, and they're like, "Oh, do you really want to do this?" Like, because we really don't want to be taken you to the hospital like multiple times a month. So I think, I lived kind of far from like the skate park, right? Okay. And so like I would have to kind of grab rides from people. Sometimes I would skate there, right? And so I stuck a lot to flat ground. So it was kind of interesting being a part of that technical aspect and watching how they did tricks and stuff like that. And this is a little bit kind of in the start of like YouTube a little bit where I would like study those tricks and I would slow down like how those pros would do it. So I skated flat ground by myself a lot. But I think that really served me well later because any game of skate, people would be like, dude, you have your tricks dialed. Some people could be better park skaters. Some people could be better transition skateboarders. Some people could kill rails, no problem. But when it came to like a game of skate and fundamentals, like I had it locked. I had it nollie, switch, like fakie, like because I would make trick lists. To be like, oh, I want to learn this trick, fakie, nollie, switch, this. And so again, that kind of started really opening up a lot of opportunities for me to get the basics down because I would skate flat ground so much that it started really serving me well to when I started like branching out to maybe other obstacles. So
now as you're progressing, like what was your first big mind blown holy shit, I just landed this?
Oh man. I got 2 stories for that one. I remember because I was so small, I could learn how to ollie, I could do this, but for my kick flips, because I was so small, I really didn't know how to like kick out, right? And like, so I kind of pushed, like flicked down almost like a late flip almost. And so I remember I couldn't like quite get my front foot on the board, just like most people who are struggling, right? Like, and I remember somehow, I just remember like, I was sitting, it was like summer, my dad's mowing the lawn, whatever, I'm just sitting in my driveway or whatever. And I just remember just really giving it a pop, kicking down, and as bad as mob as it was, I still landed on the bolts. And I look up, and my dad's like hard to impress. So he's like, "Oh, good job." Like blew my mind. And I, that's we've all been there, and like, and I think ironically that really, once you kind of start landing those tricks, it gives you that confidence to know if I put my mind to something, I can absolutely do it. And so I think once you get that feeling, it's on. Like, I don't care how hard the trick is, I will stay down here for hours. And like my whole neighborhood would know me skating up and down my street. And so I think the next thing for me that it was like a really, really big moment, second story, was tray flips.
Okay.
I couldn't I was too small to get them around, so I'd land like 270 all the way on the nose. And then I think I remember it was like really cold. It was like late November. It's like 20 degrees outside, no snow. And I remember just being like, just give it all that scoop and scoop it like boom, as much as I could. And I mustered all my little tiny little 5 foot might, and I got
the little skater that could.
The little skater that could. And I somehow, I don't know how I did it, but I just kind of kept it. I was able to like pop it. It popped right in front of me, and I landed it. And I just remember throwing my arms up and screaming in joy. Nobody was around. Nobody saw it, but I just was so unbelievably stoked that I landed it. And like to this day, is like my favorite go-to trick.
So I'm gonna quote a very famous pro skater.
Sure.
skateboarding, it's you conquer the board didn't conquer you. Right. Chet Thomas said that in Globe's opinion. And so when you said that, that's what immediately reminded me of, you conquered the board. Yep. You didn't. And I think a lot of us definitely can remember when we learned our first kickflip, when we learned our first tray flip, because the ollie is the basic trick. It's just the but when you start throwing in flicks and scoops and shoves, and that's when it gets a little more complicated. So after your first big flat ground memories, like what was your first big, I guess you could say, something with an obstacle or like an obstacle or a combo?
Yeah, I think it was really cool because like one of my friends was moving, like I think from like a childhood home, and was like getting rid of a box or whatever, and I remember, I don't even know how I got it to my house. I don't even remember at this point, but it was like a homemade box that he had. And I remember and it was like kind of falling apart. The wood's like kind of low key rotting. It's been through a lot of moisture and stuff like that. But
it's sus is
a little bit of a light word for sure. But it was really, really cool because I finally had something to skate, right? And I would try skating flat bars and stuff like that. Of course, I could do front boards and stuff like that. But I think the biggest thing that I really, really took to was like skating a ledge. And like the box was like, it wasn't like small. It was actually like kind of a pretty taller box. But I think the first thing I started doing, I have no idea how I started learning these, but I started going I think I tried to learn half cab no slides. Okay. But I ended up overdoing it and started getting into half cab 50s.
Oh shit, okay. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, and so that became a good trick that I started learning, and I generated a lot of comfortability of doing backside. And so it was interesting because a lot of my friends would skate frontside, and I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just me just kind of getting...
Dude, it takes more balls to go backside.
Yeah, but it's more comfy to me. I just how I'm like more wired, I guess. And so obviously doing half cab 50s, half cab 50, 180s, stuff like that. And then I think originally I started getting really into like back smiths because I think I remember seeing Jamie Thomas do it in the Dying to Live. I was like, I want to learn how to do that. That's my favorite trick.
I guess the reason why I say that is because when you're doing a front side, like your shift,
you
like
can
your vision,
see,
and backside, it's like, fuck, oh my god, this made that, and that's crazy, but that's pretty cool that you were getting more comfortable with back. Like I said, that's ballsy. That's ballsy as hell. They're like, I'm getting better with backside. It's like weird flex.
And it's weird too because like. Frontside almost became more awkward to me because like I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just because I kind of maybe generally like went more towards my heels, and so I think ultimately it's just a matter of just kind of figuring out like what really works out for that. Yeah. So it's been fun, man. It's been fun to like learn all of that here for you as well. So
now let's. Because I definitely want to lead up to current days. So how is when you started learning on the box, like how was your progression? Like how did it go for you from there to where we'll end up later? Sure. So how'd that gap go for you as far as just the constant progression?
Yeah, I think you learn a lot skating by yourself because it's just kind of you and yourself. And so I've definitely, anybody who's like tried, we've all been there. We've had kind of that madness portion of just like, I'd be like muttering under my breath, and like people who my neighbors are looking at me like, that kid has some problems, like whatever. And like, cause you're so focused on that trick. Right. And so, because I would have I'd be really hard on myself to be like, I know I can do it. And I'd sit out there for hours to the point where like, I would like starve myself to make sure like you're not going in until you get it. Yeah. Like that kind of level, because you're pushing yourself to that level, because in order for you to actually progress, it's easy to fall into that routine of doing the same tricks over and over. Even now today, I still struggle with that. I think we all do. Yeah. Because it takes effort to try something new. You're learning muscle memory. You're doing all this. Like, I think you really need to like, when you set an intention to say, I'm going to focus on this trick and every try is going to get me a try closer, I think that's what really started chipping away. Even if it wasn't in that same session, it gave me the confidence to be like, okay, I got closer on this. I slid this.
It gives you almost that, all right, well, you have something to build on going into the next session. Like, all right, I need to pick up where I left off here, and then...
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you lead with that intention, it makes skateboarding as much as it can kind of get maddening a little bit,
Yeah.
You have something to shoot towards. Because, I mean, you can go to your session and still have fun and do all your mellow tricks, right? But I think, you know, the whole point of why we keep coming back to that is that addiction to progression, right? Like, you know it's going to be frustrating, but you're going to do it anyway because you know every skateboarder knows that outcome of you earning that trick because you put in the reps.
Yeah.
You've done it. And I think that's something that I think as skateboarders you all collectively understand. Like, even if you've never met each other before, yeah, rolling away from that trick, you're like, yeah, I know that feeling, dude. Like,
and that's the beauty of I hate calling it a sport because it's more than that. I think it's a culture.
It is. Yeah.
It's a culture, lifestyle. Yep. It's definitely not a sport. I'm sorry, I don't give a shit about the Olympics. It's not. It's more than that.
Right.
And it's almost like a universal language that we all can speak. Is I may not know you, I may not know him, but you know. You may, you know, okay, well, say, you know, you land a hard flip and, like, say person A, B, C, and D over there can be stoked for you generally, like, in genuine, because it's like, I know what that feels like you're saying, and that's pretty damn cool that homie over there I don't even know, but I'm banging my board because it's like, damn, like, hell yes.
Yeah, and everyone, and it's cool because you meet people that are kind of on different tiers, right? So, like, it's not, like, you're not really comparing each other, like, you're all collectively in your own way, sort of trying to, you know, rising tides lift all boats, right? So like you're all trying to like progressively push each other to get better at skateboarding wherever you're at. And I think that will always be constant. And I think the consistent way of like you make relationships through struggle, right? Is that when you're battling tricks, you're at a spot like, oh, you got this, you next try. Like I just met this person 10 minutes ago, but I understand where they're coming from because we've all been there before. And that's how good relationships form. Like you've had good times, you've struggled with each other, you've been quite literally, it's depending on the spot, bleeding at the spot together, battling it, pushing each other. Like, all right, I got your back, you got my back, you better land it. And that's that energy. It's that electric energy that you feed off of. You
talking about that, we see it today, but I at least I don't get that feeling as much as when I was younger.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a lot to do because, again, as I told you earlier, social media is a double-edged sword.
Right.
When we didn't have all this exposure and it was just you and the homies, like there was more of like, is it cool to get stuff on camera? Absolutely.
Right.
But today I noticed like a lot of people got their phones out.
Yeah.
And back then, one of us had a fucking camcorder.
Yeah.
One of us was on the camcorder and everyone else wasn't there, and it was just like everyone was focused.
Right.
Like if you're on your phone, it's like I'm focused, but I'm trying to make sure I get this. Like the genuine stoke's still there. It's just a little bit's taken. The innocence is taken away from because a lot of people are like, oh, let me get a clip of it. It's like, again, that's cool.
Right.
But to me, it's like, this is my homie. I'm gonna give him my all undivided attention.
Right. It robs you a bit of the moment, I think, because of course it's great to share it with the greater wide world, and like I think that's kind of the collective connected culture we're living in. And yeah, that is, but to your point, it's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
Like, so we're trading a little bit of that instant gratification for like enjoying the present moment, you know? And I think that can be hard sometimes because there's that temptation to capture it, which is great and that's amazing. It has its merit. But I think also there's also still a lot of value to saying, well, I want to just enjoy this moment because everyone's having a great time. Let's just, the phones aren't going anywhere. Trust me. We'll put it away for a little bit, and if things are popping off, sure, we'll capture it. But like, let's enjoy the session first.
Like, I'll be honest, there's one moment I wish we would have the tech now that we did back then.
Yeah, right.
So we were at Frankfurt Skate Park. It's about 15, 20 minutes south.
Yeah.
My buddy went to try to hard flip a Euro gap.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, I'm going to go hard flip. All right, cool. No, he somehow accidentally ghetto birds.
Wow.
And we're just, like all of us, a couple of us were on the higher quarter and a couple Eric's like, I'm going to go hard flipping. We're just like, all right, stop. And he ghetto birded, and we're just like, the stoke was through the roof, but we're all going, how the fuck just happened?
Right?
And like, I'm like, now I wish I would have had a cell phone because I'm like, all right, y'all motherfuckers ain't gonna do this.
You better get that.
He's saying he's gonna hard flip it, and oops, he accidentally ghetto birds it, which is cool. So all right, I'm gonna segue into technology because that's what you currently do right now.
Right, sure.
Now there's a reason why you picked this board behind me.
Right.
So let's get into it.
Sure.
So you work at Apple.
I do.
And you have serviced a particular pro.
Yes, I have.
And that pro would be?
Mr. Rodney Mullen.
All right. I got to hear what. How is that? How was that?
You know, it's without getting too like esoteric here. I think things do come full circle on a long enough timeline, and I think it's interesting because it comes from me playing that character again, that origin story that we talked about earlier, and being kind of enthralled with just first off how nice he was, like just appearing in that video and just how awesome his tech was, and then the fact is, you know, I move out to California, get a job with Apple out there, and sure enough, it happens to be exactly where he happens to live, you know, and one day it was like kind of a slower evening at the store, and you know, he kind of waltzes in. It was unmistakable. It's clearly Rodney and his wife walking in, and unbeknownst to me, I guess he's a big fan of technology, and you know, obviously I wasn't the only fan at the store. There's a lot of other, you know, older employees that are fans of him as well, right? And so I was able to kind of talk to him for 5 minutes, and he, you know, what I think really struck me was just how locked in he is with you. He's very focused in on you, and I think that really blew me away to be like, wow, he's genuinely locked in on this conversation. And I remember even just saying like, hey man, I know this might be a bit forward of me, but like it's kind of weird to say that if it wasn't for you doing what you've done, I don't think I'd be here at all having this conversation. It would, you know, there's that snowball effect. Like it wouldn't have got me into skateboarding. It wouldn't have got me out to California. I probably wouldn't have been working for Apple. Like it's brought me all these experiences that incidentally for what just a curious kid on a skateboard 30 some odd years ago wanted to do, like that ripple effect that he's had on so many, that I told him like, dude, thank you for being you. And he just, again, just so grateful and humble. He's kind of just, you can tell there's a lot going on up there.
There's obviously there's a lot of pros that I want to meet, but I put him in the top 3 of all time that I want to meet. He just seems like a super humble. Like if you want his TED Talks alone,
agreed.
His freaking TED Talks. The fact that TED, you know, TED Talks is like, we're gonna, you know, they have so many different like smart and educated and like people, and you bring a skateboarder in, but you bring in Rodney Mullen, who is not just the Godfather, but he breaks it down to a science. And just as I was saying to you earlier, how the things skateboard teaches us, we can apply it to different concepts in life. How he ties this does the same thing too, and all these businesses are like, we need to pick this guy's brain. Just blows my mind that the Mutt himself. Oh, dude, I'm fucking jealous.
No, I get you, man. I think we all kind of relate to him because it's like you kind of see yourself in his story in some ways, because you just kind of, not that you're necessarily like a recluse, but like that you find this thing that you just are so obsessed with. That like you're so addicted to progression that it by default you kind of are going against the mainstream, right? And which is what he was doing clearly. And you by default you kind of see yourself in this story to say, again, you can relate to somebody who's wanting to progress things, but also do it in your own way. And so like even for somebody who's quite literally paved the way for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of skateboarders worldwide, like it's just, again, to have that connection to somebody, coming back to what you said earlier, the connection that skateboarding gives you on that scale, for it to come full circle, is like something that I think is unique only to skateboarding. Now,
I have you seen, it was winter 2000, I think it's winter 2001 on video. If you haven't, I would recommend that, because it talks about Rodney's origins. And it goes through it was from his origins to, I think he was still with Enjoy at the time, 2001. And it talks about that, how, because just to drop a little knowledge on you, he actually played baseball. He played baseball, and then I think it was his sister that hung out with the surfer crowd. And that's what got him going. And his first sponsor was Inland Surf Shop in Gainesville. And it talks about, like, if you haven't watched it, you can be found on YouTube. Watch that. It's so cool. When I first saw that, I was like, yo, this dude just seems like super chill, humble, down to earth. And then listening to his TED Talks, and in Utah, I'm like, I got to meet the man before I die. And I don't even want a board sign. I just would like a simple, just a chit chat. That's really to almost maybe pick his brain a little bit, just because you know, my big question was, what was going through your head, your thought process when you were first coming up with these tricks? Like, what made you go, oh, I'm gonna let me see if I can flick my foot and get the kick flip, or when he did the. What I really want to ask him is, one of my favorite tricks was to always do was a Casper. Casper slide. What? Sure. Was it because you knew the kick flip and let me try a half flip and see what happens?
Yeah.
To pick his brain like that, he got so he wasn't the first one to do the dark slide.
Right.
It was Mark Gonzalez that did a caveman dark slide, but again, like how a lot of people taking tricks that Rodney did and turn them in a different way.
Right.
Rodney took Mark's dark slide and go, you know what? I'm going to actually half flip into it. First one, I think, was Plan B's questionable or Up in Smoke.
Right.
Or secondhand, not Up in Smoke. Not Up in Smoke. Cheech and Chong. It was either secondhand smoke or questionable is when he actually did the first in and out.
Right.
So, with you working for Apple and out there, like, who else have you ran into? Obviously, besides, Mullen, obviously... Running any pro skater is cool, but when you run into the Godfather, it's like, you know what, that's kind of up there. But who else have you ran into or had customers?
I've had it's like Los Angeles area, so like you're kind of in the central portion of that, right? You're kind of in the epicenter, and so like I've ran into ironically Chris Haslam a little bit too, kind of some other young bucks as well. I think I've like ran into a couple of AMs on Creature as well. I think who else have I ran into? There's been, I don't know if you guys remember, like an amateur Giovanni Viana as well.
That name rings a bell.
Yeah, he rides for Primitive and stuff like that. So like you get a lot of the amateurs that just kind of come in or like looking at, because we are the closest like location to LAX. So you get a lot of the internationals that are like stopping through or so on and so forth. But yeah, there's been, Chris Haslam. I've helped out like, couple other people as well. I think it was a couple other amateurs.
Has Day One popped by at all?
So he has. I missed him by like a second. Sucks. Yeah. So I unfortunately, although one of my other coworkers helped him out, but yeah, he was just kind of browsing with his family. Again, nicer than can be. Just super humble.
See, it seems like though I could see why Rodney and Day One are such tight and so good friends, because I get. It almost seems like, even though there's a little bit of an age gap, but like, it's almost like they're cut from the same cloth, And I just get that feeling also that Day One is very humbled.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So, all right. Now, I want to talk about you. Today.
Okay.
Sponsors.
Sure. Of course.
Now, obviously. Before I get into that, when you noticed that you were really like this was becoming your thing,
right?
Well, first I'm gonna rewind back. When you first picked up a board, was the thought ever, I want to become sponsored and possibly go pro, or was it just, I just want to do this because this is cool as hell. This is opposite of team sports, and if it happens, it happens.
I'd say it's probably a little bit more on like the latter half of that. I think, because I had friends who were sponsored, and obviously you kind of skate long enough, that kind of just naturally happens, of course. And I think for me, it was like you always have that thought in the back of your head, right? But I think for me, I tried to keep it in perspective, because like when I'd read interviews from pros, they would have that question inevitably pop up, right? And like across the board, every single one would just be like, don't skate to get sponsored. Skate because you love it, and if it will happen, it happens. And so I think that's kind of where I think ultimately I kind of really internalized that and just said, I'm going to keep skating no matter what. And, if opportunities present themselves, amazing. I'm always open to them.
I feel that the ones that come from that aspect are a lot more humbled.
Right.
Because, again, as much as I love all the social media and all the technology, I think that's the negative side of is these kids try to put out clips just to get sponsored. And it's just like, we all get it. Would it be cool for every one of us to do something to where it's not a job and make money? Right. But it's like, are you solely looking at the dollar signs?
Right.
Or are you saying, are more of the humbled of, like you said, I love what I'm doing. If it happens, if I can make money off of this, is great. If not, so what? You've got something that makes you.
Right.
And I like that you say that you just let it flow organically.
Of course.
Because again, it makes the road, in my opinion, even though I never got to that point.
Sure.
But it just makes the reward so much sweeter.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's also humbling because you can step back and go, that's where I came from. That's where I started.
Yeah.
And getting to the point where it's like, I'm doing this as a living. Like I said, it can go one or two ways. Like, people can have that arrogance, like, I'm a pro skateboarder.
Sure.
Or holy shit, I'm doing something that I never thought I would be doing. This is pretty damn cool.
Yeah, and I think the other side of that, just to add to that a little bit, is I've always looked at my favorite pros, and like even we talked about Rodney, right? Like they're role models in a way, right? Like it's not just like, hey, I look at you as like one of my favorite skateboarders, but you're an awesome person too.
You look at it as the whole person concept.
Correct.
You know, not just, well, this dude's a gnarly skater. Because I'm not going to name names,
Sure.
but there are some pros out there that are and or were gnarly skaters, but are shitbags outside.
Yeah.
Fucking Dylan. And I think that's cool, and I think that's very admirable that, you know, you look at it that way, because again, just Rodney Mullen's contribution to just life, again, with his TED Talks.
Right.
What Tony Hawk has done with the Tony Hawk Foundation. Yeah. Oh, hell. Who are some other philanthropic skateboarders?
Yeah, I think like again,
those are the two big ones.
Deerdeck's actually been pretty good about it
with his whole Deerdeck machine.
Yeah,
his
entrepreneurship. He's opened up a lot of spots, at least within LA, like some skate spots, stuff like that. What was that?
Bob.
Burnquist,
too,
with his burn kit, and I think he's become an ambassador for Brazilian skateboarding.
Yeah,
which is pretty damn cool.
Right, and then I even have like kind of even like a slightly personal connection. Like I could maybe name drop here. Hopefully he sees this. What's up, Ryan? Ryan Lay as well. I've kind of worked with him directly with Skate After School, which is in Arizona. So like I fell in love with that organization, and I've been lucky enough to help contribute to that organization, because I know how important it is to pass it on to get just like a kid that I was, like you're searching for something without realizing it, and when you find that stoke of skateboarding and you're able to share that with kids around your age, it gets you hooked. And like once you're hooked, like that's it. Like you finally find something that you can like put your focus and energy into, which is a lot of kids that ultimately we want to make sure that their energy is being funneled in a positive direction.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because let's face it, society is not necessarily all that great today, and providing that safe space or that outlet or that opportunity to at least that generate that curiosity to where you see a lot of these you see some foundations and you see some skate parks that will take those like slightly used components, build completes, and give them to kids, and it's like, I think that's the skaters now. Skaters giving back, but supporting future skaters 100%. And giving that outlet to where it's like a gently used complete could possibly change the trajectory of a kid's life,
because it did for me. And I say that because it's like you don't realize like how much impact that could have. I'm at a point where I think every skateboarder can say this. If you weren't skating, like you almost don't want to imagine the alternative of what you'd be doing, right? So it's just, and again, it comes back to what you said earlier. I've had the opportunity I can almost trace back every good thing in my life because of skateboarding. And like whether that's a domino effect of meeting the right person, and whether that's to like your line of work that you choose to do for occupation, your other hobbies, travel. Like I've gone to Barcelona specifically for skateboarding.
Are you shitting me?
Not at all. Yeah, that was a whole.
How was skating Barcelona?
There's more than MACBA. I'll say that.
Yeah.
So I would say that.
I know MACBA, but I don't. Where in Barcelona? Where is it? There's the overhang and there's all the benches.
That I believe is parallel.
Okay, because to me, when I think of Barcelona, I don't think of MACBA.
Yeah,
I think of parallel.
Yeah,
because I've seen a lot more footage. Well, like if you like the Dark Star Battalion.
Yeah.
Chet Thomas hits that a lot. Like I've seen more clips. Maybe I was just not watching the right movies.
Right.
I've seen clips of MACBA, but I've seen more clips of Parallel,
Right.
and that's what I associate Barcelona with. Parallel. I never knew what it was. I'm like, hey, that's this place with the benches and the overhang.
Yeah. And it's I'll have to show you some footage too. I've got some like it was years back prior to COVID, of course, but like it was our first time in Europe and it was our first time traveling. But again, our reasoning for going there is because, of course, we met other skateboarders there. Sure enough, we meet other Americans, other people from Switzerland, and coming back to what you said earlier at MACBA, like you're connecting with all these people on a global, international scale now, and you meet people that like, you might not stay in touch with them all like a lot, but like you now have like connections in places that because of skateboarding, this piece of wood has brought you together, and that you have like a relationship that like at the very least, if you're in town, like you're likely going to meet up and skate for sure. Like you have friends quite literally all over the world. And I think it comes back to a larger conversation of why do you continue to skateboard? Not just because it's fun, but because it provides me a community both domestically and internationally.
Now, all right. So with you going to travel and like today, like you today, you sponsored.
I am.
How many you got?
So I'm very, very lucky to be a part of, I've been a great opportunity to be one of the first. I'm very honored to be a part of Capsule Skateboards, of course.
Which, if you watched the last episode, Dylan and I were talking about tech boards. This was the last piece we were talking about. Mm-hmm. So how did you get connected with Capsule?
Again, coming back to community, I've been extremely lucky that my great friends that I've met through skateboarding, my mutual friend, Joe Bizzacero as well. Our friend Vaughn, his manager, of course, was looking for riders for Capsule. And ultimately Joe's kind of held his tongue for a long time. But I appreciate him always going out for me and sticking his neck out for me because he had dropped my name unbeknownst to me. Yeah. And sure enough, I think I was on lunch break or something like that. I remember this call distinctly. Vaughn gives me a call and I'm just sitting on the parking lot and we had a conversation. I'd taken a look at Capsule and then said like, hey, things look great. Like the tech looks amazing. I'm more than happy to jump in, both feet first. And, that got the ball rolling. Before I knew it, I had a deck at my doorstep pretty quickly and I've been skating this thing ever since, and it's been a wild ride so far. So.
Now, out of all the boards, how does this one compare? Because I know it is a tech board and it's indestructible, but like obviously it's indestructible. But skating something like that compared to your standard 6-ply or 7-ply, like how did it take a little bit to get used to adjust to how that responds compared to like a solid maple board?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was definitely an adjustment for sure. I think the first thing that struck me was just like how responsive it was as far as its spring. Yeah, that was definitely unique to this board. Which again, not that other traditional plies don't have that, but I think I really noticed it in this board. Which I think for me being tech. Or like really enjoying more technical skateboarding, the biggest thing for me is just pop and durability, which throughout the life of me skating this board the past couple of months has not lost any luster at all. Still have more than enough pop, which is great. I think what's also unique with just how they make their technology as well, it was a bit getting used to not that I was any amazing at rails, but because it is shaped a little differently, it was a bit of an adjustment period to kind of use on flat bars. Yeah. But once I got used to it, I think it's ultimately you're so used to riding the traditional ply for so long that of course the new technology is going to come with sort of a leap in adjusting a bit, right? And so really having that sort of responsiveness, that spring, I think is something very new to boards I've never had a chance to skate. Obviously, this is something new. And so adjusting to that pop, that consistent pop, that springiness, and the fact that you're just not going to break it, period, because of its just, durability, I think you really, really get to know that you can skate it for longer and have confidence to not kick your board out if you're jumping down something or hit that rail or really it gives you the courage and the confidence to go bigger knowing that board's going to stick with you.
I was actually you just read my mind because I was going to ask, ever since getting on Capsule and indestructible boards, has your repertoire of tricks expanded knowing that it's I can throw some hammers down and I don't have to worry about hearing a
Yeah. You know, like, not that I'm like the biggest guy in the world, but like you know, as a skateboarder, like you are kind of mindful. Like, I don't want to have to like go grab another board.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like you're kind of a little bit hesitant, knowing like this is all or nothing. And I think, you know, now that I know that this board's going to continue to stay consistent throughout as long as I'll be riding it for the most part, you start getting the confidence to look at the bolts and jump right on it, and you know that you don't have to kick it away. Like, it gives you the confidence to land the tricks that you want to land, and I think that really levels up not just like your gap game, your stair game, like, but just your confidence game. Like, it's a pretty cool thing to jump down a stair set to land a trick, bolts, and roll away. Like, okay, like, you know, that's that progression. When you have confidence in your setup, it gives you confidence to progress. So.
Now, aside from Capsule, you got anything? You have any other sponsors? You got something? You have any future projects? Anything in the pipeline working as far as other deals or?
As far as right now, I think my biggest focus is just staying on Capsule. Okay. Obviously, open to kind of whatever opportunities that we'll, you know, hopefully see down the road, right? So, but I think ultimately, right now, my focus is really kind of, you know, continuing to gather footage for Capsule, and then continuing to make sure that we, you know, have like a project very soon that's coming out.
Okay.
So just wait and see on that one. But I think ultimately I'm really excited to kind of do future projects with Capsule as well, and anything else that comes along as well. I'm really stoked to do that as well.
Any talks with getting on one of our sponsors, Skirt Wheels?
You know, there's been some conversations going on a little bit. So I think that, you know, we're no wheel sponsor just yet, but there have been some conversations as well. So I'm very, very stoked on that. If you know, should that come to fruition, but. We'll stay tuned to that. So
all right. So I got to ask you right now is like, what's your shoe brand of now to skate? What's your shoe brand? What's your choice? What's your go-to?
Yeah, my go-to as of right now. I'm really pretty open. I don't have any. I'm not married to anything in particular. But I would say ultimately, like, I always kind of tend to go back to the classics. You know, for the most part. I do enjoy S. Haven't rode DC in a while. I do enjoy S, but I think ultimately I've kind of been back and forth a little bit with New Balance a little bit. But I think ultimately I was kind of looking at S as well, just because I've been kind of liking kind of the, you know, the OGs to the XLs, and like one of my other favorite skaters also rides for him, Mr. Tom Asta. So that's kind of where I get a lot of that inspiration from. So again, if it's good enough for them, like, yeah, like, let's go for it.
Well, especially now that Penny's back.
Yeah, exactly.
Hell, I'd be rocking those brown.
100%. Penny is timeless, man. It's like, especially, so very, very stoked on that.
Now, we got a couple clips that we're going to go over on your Instagram.
Yeah.
So talk us through, this is where at the barracks?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, this is a long night.
So I got to ask, what is it like to skate there?
It's really a privilege as well, and I'm very, very stoked on that as well. It's been a dream come true on some levels. I've been very lucky that a lot of my friends have been, you know, in the industry as well, that have allowed me to invite me to skate there. So there's a lot of late night sessions that go on there as well. It's been really, really fun. And so it's progression sessions, right? And so I think at that particular clip as well, that was like 1 a.m.
That was 1 a.m?
Yeah.
Holy hell.
No alarms.
Yeah, no alarms. Yeah, exactly. So we were just trying to like really, really, you know, get a session in, you know, because like both, you know, myself, you know, we're hustling out in California, and so like when we find time to skate, we find time to skate.
Now, how many times was that a first try, or did that take you a couple?
That took me a while.
Okay.
So I think ultimately it was just, you know, it was kind of a long day. I think I was skating and getting other clips while I was doing that as well. So that was kind of towards the end of the session, kind of a spur of the moment.
Okay.
And I think once I started trying it, like my friend Ben, who you saw in that clip too, was like, "Hey, we got Hart playing, Chris Jocelyn, like, you're landing this right now." I was like, "All right, dude, let's try." And that clip that he rolled on, I was like, I finally had the confidence to be like, I got the pop, just land on it, you're good.
Now, was that while riding the Capsule?
Yes, it was.
Now, again, so like, did that help with your mindset, knowing I ain't got to worry about that?
Yeah, and I think again, it's like I can literally take you through the battle as well. It's just like, you know, I wouldn't say I'm like the best at jumping stairs, but I definitely huck when I can. Right? Yeah. I got my go-tos, right? And I don't know what in my head, like I was like, nollie heel, sure, like, but I started flicking it out, and it started flipping under me.
Were you tired as hell after landing?
Yeah.
Down? I was saying, because I'm not gonna lie, just watching that clip, like I didn't see any fatigue.
Well, I will say too as well, like what I've noticed too with these decks too is like I'll even mention like I think because of the impact absorption on these, like I kind of noticed that I'm not being as sore jumping down things as well, like which is really amazing. Like I never thought I would ever say that, but with traditional plies, like you're kind of taking a lot of abuse to your body.
Well, it's kind of funny how you segue that or talk about that because Dylan and I, when we were talking about the tech boards, he was talking about he's got knee problems, I've got knee problems, how that essentially acts as like shocks on a car, and to where it gives more life to your joints, and it's not as tiresome compared to say landing on something that. I mean, it gives, but it's more stiff than that where it flexes just enough to where it acts as like shocks on a car.
Yeah, I would definitely say that's very true because you kind of really understand that there's a science, there's a physics that you're literally going against. You're fighting gravity, quite literally. So I think anything that you can do, whether it's a good setup that allows you to, not only skate your deck longer, but for you to have a longer session, 100%. Especially because as you progress, like. Things do get a little harder to do, So I think as we continue to progress, if there's anything, especially with Capsule, like allowing you to skate longer, you have more time to skate, feel energetic, and have confidence in doing those tricks, So
now this second clip, where was this at?
This is actually hometown park, Frontier, Naperville, Illinois. I came back this summer as well. So. And I've been lucky enough that I've been able to kind of get a little technical. That's a nollie back 180 nose grind. So I kind of was like really glad on that one as well. So I was able to, Mr. Joe Visacero filmed that. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate you. But it was a fun day. I think we just got rained out.
I'll say,
we just got rained out there, and so like it was just I was only back for a couple of days, so I was like, hey, we got to get a clip here, and this is the first time that I was back before they remodeled it. So I think I just kind of wanted to get a little clip just to say, hey, I'm stoked to be back home and skate the new park, and was just trying to kind of go ahead and get a just a little bit of summer footage. So.
Now speaking of, so I'm going to ask you this before we go to the third clip. So what is your terrain of choice in a sense? Are you do you like park? Do you like street? Do you like tranny?
I want to say that street's my go-to. Only just because, again, I think I find myself, especially being in Los Angeles, like, no shortage of spots.
Yeah,
right? Like, so, yeah, right? And I mean, again, I think my goal eventually at some point will, as I do have a goal personally for transition, only just because, again, I've seen how good a lot of other skateboarders are out there, especially running to legends like Steve Caballero and stuff like that. Like, if they can do it into their 50s, why not me, So, like, that's going to be on the goal list for now. But because I grew up skating flat ground, grew up skating, Chicago, Grant Plaza, all that other stuff, like, you kind of skate with what's around you, right?
Yeah.
So I stick with that strength, coming back to kind of getting that technical, sort of like, not like ledge technician, but just all around street is my preference. But again, I never try to limit myself just to that because there's so much more to learn.
Now, with you living in Cali, and you said that obviously we all know there's a plethora of street spots around LA. Have you not necessarily hit it, but have you just been to El Toro?
So I have not been there, only because that's a little bit more further south towards like Orange County a little bit, and they they put a gate up now, so like that spot is completely blocked off now. Yeah, they put like a whole gate up now that you can't even run up the stairs anymore.
Wait, so where's the gate at? Is it literally right
at the top of the stairs? Yeah.
Oh, shit, man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like they have like a whole gate that they swing closed like when the schools are, because like it's just been hit so many times at this point. I think the last person I saw who got a clip there wasn't just Jocelyn, but it was I think it was Clive Dixon. I think like last time I saw like on the socials, of course.
Now here's the question is, there's the gates there, but is there a way to, I don't say promote illegal activities, but is there ways to work around those gates to where you could get a clip?
I would say
if doing said things.
I will always leave it at this: if there is a will, there is a way.
Okay.
Even, I mean, if skateboarders are getting clips on knobbed spots, sick. Like, that's amazing. I would say that ultimately, as far as that one's concerned, it is really hard, I think, in the traditional sense, but I would just say that you maybe have to get a little creative. So I'll leave it at that.
Because you live out, because all the spots that I remember growing up with, like, were you able to ever see Carlsbad Gap?
So I never got a chance to. Rest in peace, by the way. Yeah, so I never got a chance to, but I do know that from from what other people were talking about, I watched enough videos go down there that I noticed like the uphill landing.
Yeah.
Like just the downward kind of facing of that grass cap, right? So it is even from the footage, knowing what that spot's like, you can kind of see like those little nuances of the spot.
Yeah.
Right? So I think, while I never had a chance to go there, I've seen enough footage, or at least recent footage before it got RIP'd. I think the last thing I saw was, I thought it was Trevor McClung Nollie Cab down it. I think that was the last one I saw recently that I was like, I'm so glad that you like got that one.
What about Hollywood High?
So Hollywood High I have been to.
Okay.
Yeah. I was there for all of about 8 minutes before we got kicked out.
That quick? Damn.
Yeah.
Do they got security guards constantly?
Yeah. So, and we went at night, and it was more of like just being at Hollywood High, like really sizing it up. They changed the ground up there a little bit, so like you still can hit it for sure, but you gotta hit the stairs from the other side. Like you have to run up from the stairs.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so like it's weird because like the rail, like in a weird sense, like it's like a weird cross between doable and like, okay, this is big, like maybe I can do it, like, but it's, that you're gonna be hucking for sure. If you're going down the stairs or the rail, like you gotta be on par. I think what's really incredible to me is when you actually get to the spot, like you really realize like, wow, you really have to use every inch if you're hitting the 16. The 12 is something that looks
more doable, more feasible than the 16.
Right.
What are some of the other historical spots that you've been to around there?
Oh man.
Or even skated, be it either visited or actually.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think, Santa Monica's a big one, too. I mean, you see that a lot in kind of, like, the early 90s videos, too. Like, Santa Monica, like, kind of the piers as well. Venice has its own thing as well, too.
Segueing to Venice, this last clip.
Yeah.
Is this where the old beach pits used to be from Tony Hawk 2?
Yep, you got it. That's Venice Park as well. So, yeah, so it's been fun skating there because that's always a local part as well. And it's been fun. I think I even kind of came there as a spur of the moment thing. I don't know what drew me to do switch flip. I think I just wanted to try something different.
That was smooth.
Yeah.
It was smooth.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and again, coming back to that sort of technical aspect, I just kind of like really tend to go towards like nollie and switch, I guess. So that's kind of been fun. I had a long day like at work, and I think somebody invited me out to a session. We still had plenty of daylight left, and I think the session was popping off. So I was just like, you know what, let's hug something. And I had a buddy that was filming, and he was like, dude, did you just land a switch flip? I was like, I guess, because he thought it was regular.
Yeah,
he's regular as well. So I was like, yeah, I just did it. Like so.
Now, what's left of the old beach pits?
So there's the park is still there.
Yeah.
So there was a time during COVID where they unfortunately like it was kind of weird.
Is that where they dumped a bunch of sand?
Yeah,
That's stupid.
It's kind of whack, yeah. But it was like, I mean, they were just trying because you try to tell skateboarders to get out of a skate park. Like,
not happening.
Good luck with that. Yeah.
Especially during a pandemic, it's like this is our only outlet. So get bent.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was even a lot of the skateboarders that actually ended up cleaning out a lot of the sand pits because there's
it's our community that comes together.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a group of like OG guys at Venice that like really like make sure that park's clean and stuff like that. So there's a whole community, especially at Venice.
That's good that there's there's a group of OGs that police and make sure because that's what happens to some of these skate parks that you get lost is because no one polices and like takes care because that's how a lot of parks get closed because of people acting a fool.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and so it's and whenever I go to Venice, it's always nice to be a part of that community as well. Like I'm always trying to take like, I'll be honest, it's kind of a harder park to skate, which is like the quick transition from street to transition as well. But again, it's one of those progression session parks that outside of kind of the peanut gallery that always is there with tourists and everything. I think if you're willing to like really put in the time there, like you can progress pretty quickly there.
Now, Venice, is that where the curbs are, where you see Chris and all them slapping?
It's just up the road.
Okay.
So if you keep actually going from Venice and just up the road, like up the Venice boardwalk, you'll hit the curbs as well. Yeah. So
now, what's left of the original spot where, because I'm sure you've seen the Muska Gap.
Yeah.
Now is that torn?
So they're still technically there, but they're not like the sand gap pits. Like we were kind of doing them there. Like they're still kind of technically there, but there's palm trees planted there. Yeah, so you can't really do like flat gaps anymore. There's maybe like one that's open that I remember. But you can technically still skate it, but there's like planters now in there.
So it's nothing like the and I hate to use this as a model, but it's nothing like the Tony Hawk 2 level.
Mm-hmm. It's similar but different.
I gotcha.
Yeah, it's not really as skatable, but again, it's still like you can still see the remnants of that spot. And even a picture down, if you scroll down to that picture where I'm doing that 360 flip, that's exactly where that spot is.
Right here?
Yep, right here.
No shit. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Damn.
Yeah, and even the spot down there, I skate the Santa Monica Courthouse quite a bit on this next clip as well. So like that's a lot of fun too. That's hands down like one of my go-to spots in Santa Monica as well. So yeah, so that's a lot of fun to skate. So like go to on that as well.
Another big spot a lot of pros hit is Radio Korea.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Jaquan. Jaquan is amazing, and so I've been to the spot, but I haven't like. Of course, I didn't have my board with me, right? So like that is a spot that I still need to go to. There is Jaquan Sundays, which is always packed.
I'm sure Stevie's always there.
Always, yeah. So there's a lot of like, you meet. It's again just a Sunday session there, because obviously, like, of course, the businesses are closed, of course, and so, really, really fun spot to skate. I still, unfortunately, as long as I've been there, have not skated there yet, but I'm hoping to do that very soon, the next year with 2022. So.
What about? Have you thought about venturing up north to the piers up in San Francisco, where I think Rodney Mullen round 2, Mark Johnson does a nose Manny kickflip out.
Yeah.
I think it's because I thought they tore those down, but people are like, oh no, those are.
Yeah, so they, from what I understand, they knobbed it, and like just pretty recently they unknobbed it. And so as far as I know, like a lot of people have been getting tricks there again, which is awesome. I definitely want to go up there, and like, I've got family kind of up in the Bay Area, so I'm hoping to kind of
it gives you an excuse to go see family. It's like, I'm going to go to the piers real quick.
Yeah, and just a little bit. Yeah, so we're hoping to do that sooner than later. So I think that's definitely on the docket for 2022. So getting out of LA and just, hopefully doing kind of like a spot, kind of make a scenic drive up there and kind of hit the spots on the way. And just, again, what's the best part about skateboarding with piling in with your friends, like grabbing the camera and
road
just having a road trip, right? So looking to do that very, very soon, early 2022. All
right, man. Well, look, I appreciate you coming to the studio. When Dylan's like, hey, I got a guy, I was like, bring him in. And especially he's like, he's only in for a couple of days. I'm like, oh, dude, you've been in Cali. And on top of that, but I've talked to people who've went to Cali, but not like you being there. It's like, I kind of want to pick your brain about some of the old school spots that I've seen, on videos and whatnot. Actually, I'm trying to think, am I missing spots in that area, or did I hit them all?
Hollywood.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. There's North Hollywood too. There, honestly, dude, there's so many spots, man. Like I just start losing track of them. But again, there's so many spots. You go to downtown LA, anywhere, just probably at night, preferably too.
Actually, there's one more thing I want to ask before we close off. Is it true that Mullen skates at the weirdest hours of the night?
Yeah. I've been told. I haven't asked him per se, but I definitely have heard stories in Hermosa, which is not too far where I live. I'm just 5 minutes south. I live in Redondo, so it's the beach shitties, right? So it's I heard he'll skate random parking lots just at odd hours of the night, but I can kind of understand that because you kind of want to just be in your own head, right?
Yeah.
You just want to be alone to kind of have that bonding time of just skating and just really being that outlet for you and yourself, because I think that's when the best progression happens. So while I haven't seen it personally, I've heard stories of Rodney skating solo in random parking lots across the beach cities.
Because I've heard he'll skate at 1 a.m. It's who the hell has the energy to skate at 1 a.m? My ass is probably sleeping by then.
Yeah, maybe a lot of coffee, so that'll work there.
Right, a lot. Yeah. You need a lot of Death Wish.
Yeah, a lot of Death Wish. Yep.
Anyway, Steve, thanks for coming to the studio. Thanks for telling us your story.
Of course.
Before we go, you got any shout outs you want to give to either your sponsors, the homies back home in Cali?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta give a major shout out to, there's too many to list to start off, but I want to just say first off, thank you, Dylan Vaughn as well for giving me this opportunity, and Capsule for having faith in me. Again, big shout out to, I've already mentioned his name, Joe Vicicero, just been a long time brother to me, and we've really pushed each other and progressed a lot, and I've just been really, really grateful for him, really getting this whole ball started. Right? I wouldn't be here if that was the case. Shout out to so many friends back home. Ryan Geist, I see you, my guy. He's one of my dedicated filmers as well, helping us kind of work on that project. And just anybody I've had the opportunity to skate with. My friend Ben Edwards as well. Just really, really giving me the opportunity to continue skateboarding. Anybody who I've had the privilege of, again, I would sit here. This would be a whole nother podcast if I had the whole time to list it all. But you guys know who you are. So if you guys continue to skate with me, continue to push me, again, I'm eternally grateful. So thank you guys for everything.
How often do you? So I actually, this will be the first time I'm going to say this because I didn't say it with Bray, but how often? Well, first, how often do you come back to Illinois?
I try to get as often as I can, at least twice a year.
Okay.
Typically, time kind of passes pretty quick. I'm trying to plan for hopefully next year to get a little bit more micro trips in there.
Okay.
Just to kind of, again, come back home, see family.
So, and the reason why I asked this is, I guess you could think I'm going to take a page out of the 9 Club.
Sure.
But if you're ever in town,
sure,
and you want to talk history,
sure,
you have an automatic invite back to the studio. We can film. We can talk golden era.
Oh, I love it.
Because there's when you started 2006, it was towards the tail end,
right,
but it's still during that time. And if you want to go down the rabbit hole of before that, like the time when I first, the era when I first started,
sure,
dude, I'm definitely more than down to talk to returning guests about my opinion. The greatest era of skateboarding,
sure,
99 to 2008,
sure,
2010.
Sure.
But yeah, you have an invite to come back whenever. Like I said, if I know your trips are, you've got to balance,
sure.
You have to schedule. But anytime you want to come back, just I got you on IG now, so hit me up and we can set something up. So, anyways, man, thanks again for coming to the studio. Safe travels back to California.
Awesome.
Everyone, please have a good start to 2022. Be smart. Be careful if you're going out tonight. Don't be the reason why a family gets a phone call. Don't be the reason why you have a safety briefing at work. Be smart. I can officially say this concludes season 2 now Be on the Board. I know I said that earlier because Uncle Sam, but things got canceled. I got to come back. So just a little bit of a heads up what's going on is pretty soon I'm going to be in between jobs. So when as far as next content will be filmed, I'm going to kind of feel how the new job's going to happen at O'Hare. I do have some free time between now and then, so I'm going to see if I can squeeze in something once, maybe two episodes before I go to Vegas for a couple weeks on Uncle Sam duty. But anyways, guys, where can people find your footage at?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think part of the whole community, right? I'm just Steve J Hurley _ on Instagram, so that's probably the best to kind of find.
All right, I'm all about promoting the up and comers, and so I was like, wait a minute, I have to ask. So that's his Instagram, folks. Go ahead and give it a subscribe. Look at his footy. But anyways, guys, I just want to say thanks to all the subscribers to the channel, everyone that follows the Instagram. Like I said, we've got some big things coming in 2022. It's just with the whole new work schedule. I honestly think me switching jobs, it's going to be a little easier because I won't be working some weird ass hours. But anyways, I just want to say again, thank you for coming to the studio. Thanks everyone who likes the post, comments in the post. We're going to be doing more raffles in 2022. So the Aaron's brand. Thanks again, Dan, for the care package. That's only the beginning. Right there, see? Hey, by the way, this hoodie, one of the comfiest MFers I've worn, so go to Aaron's Brands on Instagram, cop one before they're too late. But anyways, thanks again for tuning in. I look forward to Season 3 of Beyond the Board, and I will talk to you later.